Sorry about that. Where were we? What's going on? Alright, I was doing a review of Fire Emblem 7. Why does my head hurt so much? Must be this stupid game. So the introduction to the next map is sort of meant to serve as a way to explain what exactly happened over the course of a previous bunch of chapters. There are no developments about the future progress of the story until the end of the chapter. As such, I'm going to just briefly go through each piece of information we're given before conducting a full, formal analysis, complete with a timeline about the game's sequence of events. Number 1. Nils and Ninian were quite familiar with Albert, having gotten to know him whilst they were both prisoners. By the way, Albert is actually dead now. Number 2. Albert helped Ninian and Nils to escape, but when they tried to leave the island via a small boat, a fierce storm threw Nils overboard. He fell unconscious and was washed up on the island's shore. It's pretty ridiculous that he managed to survive, but it pales in comparison to what follows. Number 3. Separation from Nils is supposed to have been the trigger for why Ninian lost all her memories. Or specifically, she became lost within herself. What? There is a further attempt to justify this by saying that Ninian is emotionally and physically weaker than her brother. But like I said before, the real reason this happens is because the plot doesn't work if she knows she shouldn't return to the Dread Isle. Number 4. Nurgle can call dragons whenever he wants, but he's been specifically going after Nils because they have the ability to open the Dragon's Gate. Note that nobody present asks why they're able to open the gate and never does. The game tries to distract you from this by moving on really quickly to the next point. Number 5. Quintessence. Quintessence is explained to be the life force that Nurgle takes from others. People who have their quintessence stolen die. Ninian and Nils cannot steal quintessence. The quality of quintessence between individuals varies depending on their strength of mind and body. Nurgle needs a large amount of quintessence in order to possibly either open the gate or call dragons. The game isn't really clear about which. Possibly both. Number 6. Nurgle initially attempted to seek out targets who harbored large amounts of quintessence, but became frustrated with how much time and effort was going into finding ideal sources with no results. This is backed up by the fact that Hector refers to the experienced bounty hunters and mercenaries vanishing in Chapter 12. Therefore, he sent Ephidel to Lycia to start a rebellion via Darn, aiming for quantity over quality in a reliable fashion. Number 7. Ephidel brought Albert to the Dragon's Gate, saying he'd found the ideal source they had been looking for. There's a mistranslation here. The English script has Nils say that Nurgle's plans for war had been stopped, but what this actually says in Japanese is that there was no longer any need for a war. Either way, Nurgle is delighted because Albert and his knights were enough to provide all the quintessence he needed for his plans. Number 8. Nurgle can use quintessence on himself to heal wounds and counteract the effects of aging. Okay, so now we have just about every piece of information the game gives us about this section of the story. I'm now going to lay out the sequence of events in a handy timeline to make sure you understood it all. At an unspecified point in the past, Nurgle manages to get a hold of Ninian and Nils. Nurgle's plan is to use Nils to open the gate so that he can call dragons. We don't exactly know why he wants to do this, but that's his plan. In order to achieve his goals, he needs a large amount of quintessence, so he begins to attempt to seek out individuals who have lots of it. Roughly 1 year ago. The sequence of events here is not concrete, but this is what makes the most sense. Sonia, who is connected to Nurgle, marries Brendan Reed, head of the Black Fang. Nurgle begins to exert influence over the organization through her. Ephidel is sent to Lycia to start a rebellion via Darn, which will secure the quintessence Nurgle needs. Darn sends envoys to other Lycian Marquesses, Marquess Santaruz, Helman, and Marcus Ferre, Elbert, both agree. Lyn leaves Saka, and Ninian and Nils escape from Nurgle's clutches. Nurgle sends the Black Fang, specifically Ursula, after the siblings, but they are foiled. Lyn reaches Kaelin. The Nils leave by themselves. Ninian and Nils are recaptured. Roughly 6 months ago, Elbert visits Laos and tries to convince Darren to call off the rebellion and to get the Black Fang out of Lycia. He's unsuccessful and leaves. Shortly afterwards, he and a large portion of his knights go missing. We know that this is because Ephedel brought them to Nurgle. However, it is not clear whether they came of their own free will or Ephedel somehow subdued them. Nurgle is pleased because he now has enough quintessence in order to summon dragons. Roughly 5 months ago, rumors begin to spread that Elbert is dead. Over a week ago, during this time period, numerous things happen. Eliwood leaves Faray. Hector leaves Ostia and is attacked by Black Fang assassins. 3 days later, Eliwood and Hector meet up. Helmet is killed by Ephedel. Eliwood and Hector travel to Laos. Ephedel convinces Darren to attack Eliwood and Hector, then abandon his castle, half his army, and his son, Eric, in order to flee. Eric provides Eliwood and Hector with some useful information about Ephedel and the rebellion. 5 days later, Darren conquers Kaelin for some unspecified reason. Eliwood and Hector meet up with Lyn and retake the castle. Ephedel stabs Hausen and persuades Darren to leave all his men behind and depart for the Dread Isle, where Nurgle is. Ephedel also notes that Nurgle has said that they have all they need for the ceremony to summon dragons. Layla briefs the lords on what she knows regarding the Black Fang, Ephedel, the rebellion, and Nurgle. The lords decide to head for Valor to confront Nurgle and save Elbert. Elbert frees Ninian and Nils. They attempt to escape Valar via a boat, but Nils is knocked overboard during a storm and is washed up back on the island. The lords leave for Valor and pick up Ninian drifting in a boat near the island. She has lost her memories. The lords fight their way through Nurgle's defenses and arrive at the Dragon's Gate. Ephedel retrieves Ninian. Nurgle starts the ritual, but is interrupted by Nils. Ephedel dies. Nurgle is wounded by Elbert. Everyone leaves. Now, probably the most central component to this part of the confusing mess this game calls a plot is Ephedel. You could say that Ephedel is the key to all this.
The key to all.
I just said that! So, let's break down Ephedel, shall we? Right down to his quintessence. First off, why did Ephedel return to Lycia and then hang around Helman and Darren for 6 months? He brought Elbert to Nurgle, right? And Elbert and his knights were all they needed. So why did he have to go back? Ephedel is even explicitly quoted in Japanese by Nils to have said that he had found the ideal source of quintessence they were looking for when bringing Elbert to Nurgle. So he knows that Nurgle has what he needs, right? He also says in chapter 16 that he's been told by Nurgle that they have all they need. But the way this is phrased in both Japanese and English heavily implies he's been recently told. So had he known all along? And was he therefore lying to Darren? Or was this a contradiction? Well, let's assume he's lying. But that still doesn't answer why he's here. Well, I guess he might still be trying to get the rebellion to occur in order to get more quintessence. But if that's the case, then Ephedel has done a supremely terrible job, because nothing has happened in the last 6 months. We've seen he has such a ridiculous degree of power over Darren, to the point where if he told him to walk up a cliff, he'd probably do it. So why not just tell him to start the rebellion without foray? Does Darren's cowardice overpower his stupidity? Why not just force him then? You can blackmail him, like you did in chapter 16. Or you can just force his hand by leaking information to Ostia, which would cause the Ostian army to move in on Laos, generating the conflict that you want. Heck, you could probably just have had Hellman serve as the leak via official channels if you wanted to, since he seemed pretty willing to spill the beans back in chapter 13 after all. It's not like Nurgle and Ephidel actually care about taking over Lycia, they just need a lot of people to die, right? Many of Ephidel's later actions, in chapters 12 to 17, seem to go against this too. If he's trying to start a large-scale conflict, why does he keep taking steps that just seem to delay or prevent it? Like trying to stop Eliwood's investigation, killing Hellman, and crippling Darren's forces. Well, what if he's not lying, and still thought he had to get more, meaning the game contradicted itself? Well, other than making the writers look dumb, that leads to the same conclusion anyway. I suppose Nurgle also looks like an idiot for failing to communicate his orders to Ephidel, but whatever. Okay, so, what if Ephidel isn't trying to get more quintessence, and is there because Nurgle wants him to maintain some kind of political influence in Lycia? Basically, his purpose is to keep straying Hellman and Darren along, as long as possible, to keep things stable. Stop anyone from tracing stuff back to Nurgle, and if necessary, prevent them from leaking information. That'd sort of make sense, right? I mean, he does seem kind of interested in that at the start of the game. It also gives him an excuse for not having done anything in 6 months. But considering the rest of his actions in chapters 12 to 17, ultimately, this line of thinking just ends up leaving Ephidel looking really incompetent and stupid too. Failing to kill Hellman and Hausen effectively served as ways to leave a breadcrumb trail for Eliwood and Hector. Having Darren flee with half his army instead of throwing his remaining forces at Eliwood and Hector to stop their investigation doesn't add up either. Heck, he didn't even need to use force to stop the investigation in the first place. Like I pointed out before, Hellman could have just refused to have met with Eliwood by feigning he was sick or busy or something. You know, like you said last time. And this doesn't even get into the stupid shit Ephidel does when Eliwood and company make it to the Dread Isle. I touched on this before, but remember that he was explicitly told to exterminate them, then sends Jafar to leave them a warning instead of just killing them or doing anything himself, then sits on his ass until they get to the gate. But wait, I hear some of you saying, what if Ephidel is actually executing some secret, amazing, complicated master plan that incorporates everything, huh? What then? This is a defense I've heard before, so let's obtain the idea a little. It goes something like this. Ephidel is basically there to keep an eye on things in Lycia during those 6 months. So he has an excuse for not doing anything. But when he discovers that Eliwood is trying to find Albert, he decides that since Eliwood is Albert's son, he may be a good source of quintessence. So he hatches a plan to lure Eliwood to the Dread Isle so Nurgle can take his quintessence. On the surface, this seems like it works. It can even explain why Ephidel is so bad at killing people. But the devil's in the detail, my friend. Firstly, given that Thymstella and Sonia are shown to be able to harvest quintessence, and that Ephidel is treated by Nurgle as one of his most important and precious morphs, why would he have to lure Eliwood to the island anyway? If Ephidel can't harvest quintessence, then aren't, like, all of the people he sends to Eliwood in danger of jeopardizing his plan? Did he know that all of them would fail to kill him? Maybe Ephidel really hates getting his hands dirty. Wait, no. Okay, maybe he just plans to grab Eliwood's quintessence if he dies along the way, but that doesn't answer why he'd need to lure him to the Dread Isle. He could have just kept attacking them in Lycia, with all the Black Fang he has available. Next, how would Ephidel be sure that Hellman wouldn't die before Eliwood got to him? Or that he wouldn't change his mind, or just not convey enough useful information? Technically, Eliwood is already heading to Laos, but how would Ephidel know that? I mean, that was decided in a conversation between Eliwood and a village elder in chapter 11. And how did he know that Eliwood and Hector wouldn't kill Eric before he gave them more information? Maybe he played Fire Emblem 6 since Eric's still around in that game. This plan also means that Ephidel must know that Layla was a spy, so he purposely gave her something to do at Caelin so she could serve as an informant. But why did he have to take over Caelin to do this anyway? Couldn't he have just told Layla to keep track of Eliwood's movements, so she had an excuse to be near them, without anyone else watching? On the topic of Caelin, what's even the point of bringing Darren along to the Dread Isle anyway? The guy serves no purpose beyond being stupid enough to manipulate into starting a rebellion. But the rebellion is off now, isn't it? Maybe Darren's a decent source of quintessence? I mean, he is one of the final chapter supermorphs, but nobody ever talks about him like he was worth anything. Come to think of it, Eliwood brought his dad's corpse back to the mainland, but since Darren's essence was used for his morph, they must have left his corpse just rotting on the Dragon's Gate. What an asshole! I mean, wouldn't Eric want to bury his dad? And Darren was the Marquess of Laos after all. Man, no wonder Eric hates fairies so much in FE6. Anyway, back to the master plan. Nobody but Fargus seems crazy enough to say it to Valor, so how did Ephidel know that Ellie would be able to get a ship there? Does he know Fargus? Wait, wasn't Damien trying to kill Eliwood in 17X? Ephidel isn't even on the mainland at that point to potentially harvest Eliwood's quintessence. Did he forget to tell the Black Fang to stop trying to kill Eliwood as long as he wasn't there to steal his quintessence? How did Ephidel know that Uhai would tell them the way to Dragon's Gate if he lost? Wait, scratch that. How did he know that Nurgle knew that Ninian had lost her memories so that she wouldn't end up explaining everything? Guess they just don't care as long as she's with them on the island, but it's not exactly super clear at that point if Ninian is going to come with them all the way to the gate. It also doesn't explain why he didn't just have Jafar kill Eliwood when he sent him to drop off Layla's corpse in Chapter 19. Even if Ephidel can't harvest the quintessence himself, Nurgle's here, and he can teleport all over the place. So why not just tell him about it? Or have Jafar bring the corpse back to the gate? In fact, forget Chapter 19. Why not just have Eliwood killed right here, right now, in Chapter 20? Yeah, you know, considering this game's antagonists consistently gloat and explain their plans to the heroes in Saturday morning cartoon fashion, the idea that Ephidel was somehow employing some kind of amazing master plan to lure Eliwood to the island is not something that they would have neglected to have a scene about. Really, it's almost as if the reason none of the characters ask any questions about what was going on, and Ephidel dies and is never mentioned again, is because the writers didn't have a fucking clue either. We're hoping you just forget about the details, only remembering that Ephidel was weird and mysterious. Oh, God. You know, the only remaining possibility to Ephidel is that he was really meant to look like a total fucking incompetent loser, and his death was meant to reinforce that. But you see, FE6 had a character just like this, and he was handled far, far better. His name was Narcian. Narcian is shown to be reasonably strong, but is cripplingly impeded by his own self-obsessed nature, which repeatedly serves to bite him in the ass. He constantly underestimates his opponents, and avoids taking responsibility for anything, and is punished for it by being demoted, and his final acts involve trying to pin the blame on someone else before being discarded and dying in the same way he treated his subordinates. There's poetic justice in how Narcian is executed. Ephidel just pales in comparison. Now, if you're not a complete idiot, you may have noticed something that comparatively dwarfs everything stupid Ephidel did. 6 months before the start of Eliwood or Hector mode, Nurgle has all of the core components he needs in order to summon dragons. So why the heck didn't he summon dragons 6 months ago? No explanation is ever given for this. The only idea I can come up with is that Nurgle wanted more quintessence in order to summon more dragons or something, or to make the whole process safer and more reliable. This is vaguely supported in the script, when he tells Linstella to contact Sonya so that she can arrange a meeting with the king. And much later on near the end of the game, both of these set some kind of precedent for more quintessence being ideal. But couldn't Nurgle have used the dragons he summoned to generate more quintessence? If he can control them, having one just rampage around should give him tons more, right? It's later made clear that his intent isn't to actually control them though, and instead he wants to take their quintessence. So why didn't he just summon one to take its quintessence from then? If the whole process of summoning a dragon doesn't at least give him more than what he needs to summon it, why would he be doing it in the first place? Believe it or not, this dilemma makes Ephidel even more confusing. Nurgle needs more, so presumably he'd tell Ephidel to get more. Yet he's entirely unconcerned with the fact that Ephidel has achieved nothing in 6 months. Or, Nurgle actually told him to sit on his ass and do nothing for 6 months, despite the fact that Nurgle needs more quintessence. But wait, there's more! If Nurgle cares so much about quintessence, and making sure things are perfect before summoning dragons, why the fuck does he initiate the ritual in Chapter 20? Not only is he forfeiting the possible extra quintessence he apparently wanted before from Burn, he's also executing his ritual at a moment when many things could go wrong. Firstly, Eliwood and company are there, and they've apparently managed to beat just about everybody that's gotten in their way so far. And Ephdel just sent Jafar very far away for no discernible reason instead of just having him kill them. Secondly, Nils is still missing. He could fuck things up. In fact, he does! Man, how the hell did Nurgle not know where Nils was anyway? He's pretty aware of everything that happens on this stupid island. Thirdly, when Nurgle is controlling Ninian, it seems as if he's unable to do something really basic, like knock Nils away. This means he's really vulnerable when controlling her. If he's not totally preoccupied, why doesn't he just stop Nils himself instead of just telling Ephdel to? Fuck, for that matter, why does Ephdel not do anything? And then why doesn't he teleport away afterwards? Now, the answer to all these questions is pretty simple, really. It comes down to this one thing. Lazy ass writers! These cheap motherfuckers had two goals: creating a mysterious atmosphere to draw the audience in, and generating a lot of dumb drama in order to have a narrative climax for it all. They tried to achieve the former in two ways. First, there's their tendency to shove the word mysterious or its various synonyms into the script at every possible opportunity. This is done in order to try to convince the audience that particular characters and events really are mysterious. In fact, I made a list of them all, so let's review it, shall we? Its beloved and benevolent ruler, Lord Elbert, has mysteriously vanished, as have a number of his sworn men, loyal knights who served at his side. Eliwood's father is missing, for goodness sake. We know that Marcus Laus is connected in some way. I say we use Ostia's might to end this mystery and find the truth. He encounters a mysterious group whose dark garb hide an even darker secret. Yes, of course, Marcus Laus, Blackfang assassins, now this mysterious Ephdel. I'll find them all and prove my father's innocence. Lord Darin and his knights are with the instigator of the rebellion, the enigmatic Ephdel. We've learned of a mystery man named Nurgle behind Reed's wife. He's eerie. He always wears a cloak that covers his face. And yet, Darin, the Marquess of Laos, the Blackfang assassins, the mysterious Nurgle and his henchman, Ephdel. Hector arrives on the shores of Valor with a new companion in his numbers, an enigmatic young girl named Ninian. It's no one's fault. There's an eerie power here. No, it's not a picture of the actual fighting. It shows a single human and a single dragon. It's a very eerie picture. Let me tell you a little something, okay? Your enemy here isn't Brendan Reed. There's this creepy fellow named Nurgle. This shit is happening in over 3/4 of the maps up to this point. Hey idiots, telling the audience that stuff is creepy or mysterious does not make it creepy or mysterious. You're supposed to make them feel it. If you have to explicitly explain this kind of thing to them, then you're already fucking up. And that brings me to the second way they go about it. Having lots of confusing shit be said or happen, and then very quickly moving on from it, never to bring it up again. Remember all those instances of nonsensical plot elements and character behavior I just dissected earlier? None of them were ever thought through, or even thought about at all. And that's why none of them make any sense. They were only placed there to try to trick you into thinking that this game has some kind of really complex and deep plot, so that Ephdel and Nurgle can have a really awesome plan that you just can't make out. So mysterious, man! God, it's like that bit in Star Trek Nemesis where they're wandering around finding parts of that android. Anyway, you probably didn't even process how fucking stupid a lot of this shit was when you were playing the game. When the script ignores past plot points and introduces new contradictory ones, your brain couldn't make sense of it, so it just filled in the gaps, because your natural inclination isn't to assume that the story doesn't make sense. Now, I'm not saying that the game has to spell everything out, but if stuff that makes no sense happens, and there's no reasonable explanation, then that'll just make your audience confused. This can work if your intent is to frustrate the audience, or maybe make them think a little bit about the ideas presented in the story. See if there's some kind of contradiction of society, or genre tropes, or the like. But this game ain't trying to do that shit. None of the illogical actions or stupid plot holes in this story serve any purpose whatsoever, let alone some kind of fucking meta-narrative. Every instance of stuff that doesn't make any sense is just a byproduct of the writer's attempts to make the story seem more intricate than it really is, and being too lazy to follow through. So ultimately, all that happens is that we're left confused and frustrated, and that just makes me angry. and you won't like me when I'm angry. I mean, I guess this could all just be some kind of amazing series of mistakes made by a bunch of stupid amateurs who forgot what they wrote a couple of paragraphs ago. Or maybe they all just had Alzheimer's. Maybe they were so invested in their stupid ideas for dramatic scenes, they didn't bother putting any effort into the connecting scenes together. But I don't know, man. This happens so much, has such a large effect on how you perceive the story, that to say that it's coincidence just doesn't sit right with me. That kind of shit only happens if you have an infinite number of monkeys on infinite typewriters given infinite time. Now, earlier in this review, I snuck in an example of this trick when I laid out the timeline, but moved on to complaining about Ephidel immediately instead of addressing the whole "why didn't Nurgle summon dragons 6 months ago" crap. If you didn't fall for this, congratulations, you're not a retard. Oh wait, can I still say retard? I mean, you're not an exceptional person. The writer's other goal was having some kind of dramatic climax. The events in chapter 20, where Eliwood sees his father die and Nurgle nearly succeeds, were almost certainly decided upon very early in development, well before the details of the script were laid out. The exact process of how the player gets to that point was just haphazardly thrown together in a rush afterwards. As a result, a million conveniences have to occur, and everyone who should know better has to believe in illogical ass ways. I've already exhaustively gone through all of these, but here's a concise summary of some of the worst examples. Number 1. Evidel's actions and motives on the mainland make no sense no matter how you examine them, because he's really just a plot device to get Eliwood to the Dread Isle. Number 2. Nurgle lets Ninian and Nils escape for the second fucking time. One of them survives a storm while unconscious and in the water, while the other gets convenient amnesia. Number 3. Jafar leaves Leia's corpse as a warning instead of killing Eliwood, even though he's supposedly more powerful than his entire group. Number 4. Ephidel sends Jafar away on some kind of assignment in Burn, so he can't stop anyone from interfering with the ritual. Number 5. Nurgle does the ritual at the worst possible time when the largest amount of things can go wrong. Number 6. Ephidel and Nurgle do nothing to stop Nils from waking up Ninian. Number 7. Nurgle didn't fucking summon dragons 6 months ago! The final point is the apex of all this shit. In fact, this specific part is so stupid that I'm even convinced that the writers didn't realize they'd introduced such a huge plot hole. They didn't bother to review their final timeline like I did. As far as I can tell, nobody else has either, since I've never found anyone complaining of bringing up this point anywhere else before. And I spend all of my time on Fire Emblem forums and subreddits. God, you could say the plot was basically written backwards from the climaxes. You know, just because it's a prequel doesn't mean you have to write everything ass backwards. Now do you see why I had to wait so goddamn long to break it all down? The sheer amount of insanity in this script is just mind-boggling. And everything is connected in some way or another. And they all play off each other to make it nearly impossible to formally explain and dissect it all without putting in a shitload of work. Every answer that you might think explains something just gets eliminated by another piece of information. For all the lame attempts this game tries to insist that it has a complex mystery, the real mystery to me is how anyone could fucking think that this game is any good. At least the game's worst part has to be over now. I feel like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. I'm gonna take a break, get some booze, and wait. I'm not even done with chapter 21 yet? Are you fucking kidding me? Ah!